Silent power isn't just a personality trait. It's a psychological adaptation. A system your mind built to navigate environments where expression felt unsafe, unpredictable, or unrewarded. At its core, this pattern is deeply tied to something called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is a state where your nervous system is constantly scanning for subtle cues, tone shifts, facial expressions, emotional undercurrents. It's like living life with your internal radar permanently switched on. You don't just listen to what people say. You read what they mean. You anticipate what they might do next. This makes you incredibly perceptive. But also incredibly tense. Because your brain is rarely at rest. Another layer of this is avoidant attachment. When early relationships taught you that emotional closeness could lead to disappointment, rejection, or overwhelm, you didn't stop needing connection. You just learned to need it, quietly. To want people, without depending on them. To care, without revealing it fully. So instead of expressing your needs, you mastered the art of self-containment. You became emotionally self-sufficient. But here's the cost. You also became emotionally inaccessible. Then there's the role of the default mode network, the part of your brain responsible for self-reflection and internal dialogue. In people with silent power patterns, this network is often overactive. Meaning, you live more in your thoughts than in your expression. You analyze conversations after they happen. You rehearse things you could have said. You build entire emotional experiences internally, that no one else ever sees. It's like having a rich inner world. But no bridge connecting it to reality. And so, your silence isn't emptiness. It's overflow, without release. You learned early, that speaking too much had consequences. Maybe it wasn't loud. Maybe no one ever shouted at you directly. But there was a shift, a subtle tightening in the air when you expressed too much of yourself. So you adapted. You became quieter. More observant. More careful. You started reading people instead of revealing yourself to them. And over time, silence became your identity. Not because you had nothing to say. But because you learned that saying less kept you safe. Now, people look at you and say things like, "You're so calm. You're mysterious. You don't react like others." But what they don't see is the constant calculation happening beneath that still surface. You are not just quiet. You are watching. You are measuring. You are containing. And here's the paradox. The very silence that protected you is now the same silence that isolates you, ***. It gave you control. But it also took away your connection. It made you powerful in rooms. But invisible in relationships. And somewhere deep inside, there's a part of you that wonders. Is this really strength? Or just survival dressed as control? Because true power doesn't feel like tension. It doesn't feel like holding your breath. Yet that's exactly what silent power often becomes. A life lived behind a glass wall. Where you see everything. But rarely feel seen. There's a quiet grief that comes with this way of being. Not dramatic. Not visible. But persistent. It's the grief of being deeply understood by yourself. And rarely understood by others. Because you don't give them access. You don't show them the full picture. You show them fragments. Controlled versions. Edited emotions. And over time, you start to feel like no one truly knows you. But the truth is, you never gave them the chance. This is the hidden sacrifice of silent power. You trade authenticity for control. You choose being unreadable, over being vulnerable. You choose composure, over connection. And the deeper fear beneath all of this is simple. The fear that if you fully reveal yourself, you will lose control of how people see you. That they might misunderstand you. Reject you. Or worse. Not value you at all. So you stay silent. Not because you are weak. But because you are protecting something fragile. Your truth. There's a concept often discussed by Carl Jung. What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. And what you resist is being seen. So your silence grows. Your distance grows. Your internal world expands. While your external connections shrink. You become the observer of life. Instead of a participant in it. And that is the real cost. Not loneliness in the physical sense. But emotional isolation in the presence of others. This pattern doesn't disappear with time. It evolves. It becomes more refined, more socially acceptable, even admired. But underneath, it's still the same coping strategy. And you might recognize it in yourself through certain patterns. You might struggle to express your needs clearly. Choosing silence instead of risking rejection. You might appear calm in conflicts. But internally replay everything for hours or days. You might attract people who overshare. While you remain the listener, never the one being held. You might feel deeply connected to people. But never fully let them see that depth. You might overthink messages before sending them. Editing yourself to avoid being too much. You might avoid emotional vulnerability. Even when you crave closeness. You might pride yourself on independence. But secretly feel exhausted from carrying everything alone. These are not personality traits. They are adaptive strategies. They were built to protect you. But what once protected you is now limiting you. And the first step in unlearning this is not to force yourself to be louder. It's to witness your silence. To notice when you're holding back. To ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I speak right now? Because beneath every moment of silence, there is a fear. And when you start identifying that fear, you stop unconsciously obeying it. This is where change begins. Not in action, but in awareness. Healing silent power isn't about becoming someone else. It's not about turning into the loudest person in the room. It's about integrating your voice with your awareness. You don't need to lose your depth. You don't need to lose your perception. You just need to stop hiding behind it. One of the most powerful tools here is inner child reparenting. Because the version of you who learned silence is still inside you. Still waiting for permission to speak. Still waiting to feel safe being seen. And healing begins when you give that version of yourself what they never had. Validation. Safety. Permission. You start small. You express one honest thought, without editing it. You share one feeling, without minimizing it. You let someone see a little more of you, than feels comfortable. And slowly, the wall begins to crack. Not all at once. But enough to let light in. There's also the practice of shadow work, facing the parts of yourself you've hidden or suppressed. Your anger. Your needs. Your desires. Not as flaws. But as parts of you that deserve acknowledgement. Because real power is not silence. It's alignment. It's when what you feel, what you think, and what you express are no longer disconnected. There's a quote often attributed to Jung. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that is the real goal. Not perfection. Not control. But wholeness. Because you were never meant to be invisible. You were never meant to carry everything alone. Your silence was survival. But your voice is where your life begins. So don't try to fix yourself. Don't try to erase your quiet nature. Just stop abandoning your truth within it. Because the real law of silent power is this. True power is not in saying less. It's in no longer being afraid to be seen, asterisk asterisk. And when you reach that point, you won't need silence to feel strong anymore. You'll simply be.